Дорогі колеги, з нами сьогодні Георгій Чакаров, CEETV. Він наведе під час своєї лекції декілька прикладів того, як канали платформи в Європі працюють з документальними фільмами і чому, та чому деякі мовники повністю ігнорують цей жанр. Загальний погляд на цю ситуацію він надасть, виходячи із кейс-стаді 20 днів в Маріуполі. Тож, пан Чакаров, вам слово.
Thank you for inviting me to do this presentation, and I hope that it will be very informative for you. And I also want to congratulate the Ukrainian industry for being so resistant and being so creative right now. I can say that I have seen several of your original productions, and I think the rest of the world definitely deserves to see what you're doing right now, especially in these conditions. So I will start with a little note about the industry in general, because I managed to find some numbers about the production volumes in Europe especially. And what the European Audiovisual Observatory shows in its 2023-24 report is that there actually was an increase in the production of documentary films, especially, whose share increased year on year by 16% in the region. But those are numbers for 22, which means that this is one problem that we have with the documentary industry in general, that data arrives quite late. For example, now it's already 24, but now we get numbers for 2 years ago. So it's really hard to track those. And what they also say about the documentary industry is that the top 3 European countries that produce the most documentary films per annual basis in 2022 were Spain with 153 films, which is an increase year on year of 20 films. Second comes Italy with 137, and they increased their number by 16. And then we have Switzerland with 83 films only, Switzerland, and they had only 72 films produced in 2021. So that gives you a kind of a basic idea of what each country in Europe is capable of producing, especially bearing in mind that Spain and Italy are 2 of the biggest countries in Europe. And in my personal opinion, UK has always been the country producing the most documentary films, but apparently this is not the case. Of course, I don't know the exact methodology of the observatory, so it's really hard to say whether they mean documentary features and so on, because the universe of the documentary production is really quite wide, and it stands on its own. We can say that there are light documentaries, there are documentaries which focus only on history, others that focus on current affairs, on natural science, and so on. So it's a really hard genre to track for sure. And moving on to our topic of how the broadcasters deal with documentaries, I can say that in general, the interest for this genre has been increasing in recent years. And this is mostly due to the fact that actually the streaming platforms, they found out that such type of content can bring them extra audiences. So this is the reason why we see so many documentary productions already appearing on platforms like Netflix, on Paramount Plus, on Apple TV Plus, on and even on local ones, regional platforms for the separate countries. So the reason for this is that actually they found out that here they have an opportunity to attract a different type of audience, which is not so focused on binging, so to say, content, but an audience which is more focused on knowledge, so to say. And actually this is one new purpose that the streamers found out for themselves, that they can actually educate their audience and this way keep it coming back for more, paying for more quality documentary productions. Otherwise, in the broadcasting world, it's quite a different story because there things change very slow. And I can say that they have not changed much in the last 15 years. Basically, the documentary genre is mostly represented on channels which are owned by public broadcasters, and because this is their mission. But also there are cases where European governments introduce legislation where they have a public agreement, so to say, with commercial broadcasters who are basically engaged in the production and also showing of documentary films for which they receive some state support. This is mostly the case in countries like the UK, where you also have what we consider to be mostly commercial channels like Channel 4 and Channel 5, but they also show quite a lot of documentary and factual productions in their prime time. Of course, no need to talk about the BBC, where this is one of the mainstream genres for them. And this is also quite developed in the Nordic countries, where you have, again, the state signing a deal with the commercial broadcaster for which they receive a certain budget, and they have the obligation to show such type of programs, not just somewhere in their schedule, but actually in the prime time. And again, the goal here is to educate the public, not just entertain them, not just get them distracted, because actually we all know that the goal of private television is to entertain people and keep them distracted, while documentaries do the opposite. They make you focus on a subject, they try to make you think about this subject, and it's for commercial television, that's a problem. They don't like to make their audience think that much because they think it will not bring money. Still, we have commercial broadcasters who are not obliged by the state to show documentary productions, but they still do it. And mostly this is the case when we're talking again about commercially successful documentaries. And I think we all know about Sir David Attenborough. He's basically a brand, and this is one of the brands that really works for any type of broadcaster. It doesn't matter if it's public television or commercial television. So basically, BBC have been quite successful in turning their documentaries into actual commercial hits with millions of viewers all over the world. And it's very rare that we see commercial broadcasters dedicate a certain slot in their schedule to documentaries, but some channels have those. And one example that I can give is in Greece, actually. A purely commercial channel, but for years, Sky has been airing documentaries either in a late night slot, or right now they have a special slot in their afternoon schedule on weekends, where again they show productions by BBC. Again, it's natural science productions. Of course, now with the evolution of television and the entrance of the niche channels, a lot of those players launch dedicated channels with documentary productions. And again, what prevails there is this type of factual entertainment, natural science documentaries, and of course, historical. And we can observe such developments also in the CEE region, where the big groups really invest in documentary productions for their niche channels, and they're showing quite good results, actually, with growing shares every year. So even the commercial players now start to realize that actually it is worth investing in such type of content, which builds a steady and loyal audience, which is very important for a commercial broadcaster. I can give a very good example with Prima in the Czech Republic, where basically their documentary channel sometimes reaches a monthly share of 5% in the commercial demo, which is an amazing result. I mentioned about public channels, and most of them, what they do now is not just have a dedicated slot in their prime time for documentary productions, but of course also develop their streaming platforms, which right now become the main stage, so to say, where they spread their documentary content. And again, it works quite well. With streaming, it doesn't matter if it's US giants, if it's a public broadcaster with its streaming platform. Again, this attracts a very important audience, a very loyal audience, which helps grow the interest for the public broadcaster itself. And again, it can claim that it actually fulfills its public service role, because it not only entertains, but also educates the public. Of course, I mentioned that there are different types of genres when we talk about document. Let's say you are a commissioner who is responsible for buying documentary productions, but your title says, for example, acquisitions of documentaries, but bearing in mind the huge number of documentaries being produced every year and in a very different genres, it's a big problem for such people to find the right content for their platform and for their audience. So we should always have that in mind when let's say, trying to pitch our own product to them. So regarding the type of audience, the story, and for example, compare it to other similar successful projects, it will help them to understand what you are actually proposing to them. Once they have that clarity, they can easily make a decision, because you should bear in mind that most of them do not have the time to watch the documentary in full. Let's say you produced a 60-minute documentary. If they get 20 proposals, they will not watch all of them. So it is very important to describe your production in the best way possible in order to convince them that they should actually acquire your production. And of course, the subject itself is very important. And this is where we come to 20 days in Mariupol. Needless to say, it's a heartbreaking production. It's also very political. For some, when I talk about the examples now of how it was shown or not shown, you will understand what I mean by this. So the decision, even though this is an Oscar winner, for them to show it to their audiences, it's a very tough decision. We should take this into consideration when we're talking about this. For example, we had another similar winner, let's say, but again, political documentary, winning the Oscar last year with Navalny. And again, for Ukrainians, this is an amazing comparison, so to say, of how these things are being handled by the international broadcasters and platforms. So Navalny, of course, it's a very striking topic for the West, a guy who goes there to sacrifice himself and so on. But of course, compared to 20 days in Mariupol, we can call this production light entertainment. It is not as hard-hitting, and it is much easier to program. And I can give you a very good example. Once it won the Oscar, immediately it was shown in prime time, even on a channel in Bulgaria which never shows documentaries in prime time. Not in prime time, even in their daytime schedule. BTV showed it on the next day in their prime time. Of course, one of the reasons is that it's co-produced by a Bulgarian, but even if 20 Days in Mariupol was produced by a Bulgarian, I doubt that it would be shown in the prime time. So again, this is a very important topic, what actually the viewers will see and how do you present it to them. The time slot, especially when we're talking about broadcasting, is very important. And in the case of 20 Days in Mariupol, usually what broadcasters do when they buy documentary content, most of the time it's related to a current topic. Let's say a famous person died or a big event happened, catastrophic or whatever. Usually producers immediately come out with some production that they start offering to broadcasters and platforms immediately in order to cover that topic as soon as possible. Of course, with 20 Days in Mariupol, we have a case where it's a production that was made like in March 22. And it took some time to produce the film, to do the post-production. Of course, we know the story that we could even not get that film because the guys had to escape from the city. So, of course, everyone knew what the story was about. Everyone knew what had happened in Mariupol. They had seen the news reports, the bombing, the crying woman, which is now one of the propaganda faces of the Russians and so on. But what was important to them was to find an occasion, so to say, that would allow them to show this story again. So what we observed that most of the time, this occasion, they related to the, let's put it this way, anniversary of the war, 2 years of war in Ukraine. And most of the broadcasters in Europe premiered 20 Days in Mariupol close to that anniversary or exactly on the day of the anniversary, in order to remind Europeans that this war is still going on. It has not gone anywhere, and people need to care about this. And when they see this, they will understand why. Some broadcasters were even quicker than that. And it's, again, because this is a political documentary, we can put it this way. It is very interesting to observe how it started appearing across TV screens in Europe. And some of you might be surprised, but the first country which had a TV premiere of 20 Days in Mariupol was Sweden. And that happened on the 26th of November. 26th of November. Actually, this is close to the time when the film was actually released in cinema theaters across Europe. But in Sweden, they decided to put it on TV right away. It's not even on TV, but on streaming of the public broadcaster SVT player, and also on their specialized channel, Kunskapskanalen. So this was the first premiere, and it was still late 23 when they launched it. And what is interesting about them is that they acquired the rights for 3 more years. So until November 26, the Swedish users of the streaming platform of the public broadcaster will be able to watch 20 Days in Mariupol whenever they decide. So this is really impressive. It's because you can say that most of the times deals are made for several months, if that regards streaming platforms. After Sweden, the next country that presented 20 Days in Mariupol on television was the Belgian podcaster, the Flemish actually, VRT, and they premiered the documentary again on a specialized channel and not on their main channel. They premiered it on the Campus channel, which is an arts and culture and documentary channel, but they gave it a very prominent spot in the prime time. This is one of the few cases where the documentary was aired in the first part of prime time, so to say, at 8:10 in the evening. And that happened on January 14th. So far we have 2 Western countries who are very far away from Ukraine, but also they're 2 of the countries that are helping Ukraine the most among European countries. So again, this is also politically related. And the next one, the next 2 actually, are Denmark and Norway. In Denmark, they showed the documentary on the second channel of the public broadcaster, DR2, on January 28th. So this is 1 month before the so-called anniversary. And they put it in the second part of prime time at 10:15. Then we had the premiere in Norway, but it wasn't on television. It was only on the streamer of the public broadcaster, NRK TV, and that was on February 6th. And again, another Western country which helps a lot to Ukraine in all sorts of ways. It's the Netherlands. They launched 20 Days in Mariupol on February 13th in the prime time of, again, a specialized channel. It's a national channel, the second channel of the public broadcaster, NPO2, in the prime time. And of course, all of the cases that I mentioned so far, all of them are offering the documentary to stream on their streaming platforms. And the first Eastern European country to show 20 Days in Mariupol was Poland. And that happened on the 19th of February, so very close to the second year since the start of the Russian invasion. But surprisingly, it was not a public broadcaster, and it was Canal Plus. So a pay TV platform, a streaming platform that acquired the rights, and I can watch online on their platform. But again, even in Poland, it was not shown in prime time. They aired it at 10:30 in the evening. Germany came after Poland. Actually, it was on the same day. On the 19th of February, the leading German public broadcaster, Das Erste, streamed their so-called streaming platform. And again, when we talk about politics, you know, I guess I'm sure that you know about Austria's so-called neutrality. And I can tell you that in Austria, they have not aired 20 Days in Mariupol, and it's not available on any streaming platform. So having an idea about what Austria's role in Europe's position in this war is, you can actually understand why, let's say, the public broadcaster of Austria doesn't want to show this documentary. In Switzerland, though, they're not afraid of this, even though they are the most neutral country in Europe, so to say, but they aired 20 Days in Mariupol for the first time on the 22nd of February, and that was on the main channel, but again, a very late slot, almost at midnight. But still, you can stream the show there, and they occasionally schedule it again for TV broadcasts on their channels. So Switzerland is braver than Austria, it turns out. France. In France, again, the public broadcaster has the rights, and mostly they focus on streaming it on their platform France.tv, but they also showed it on the specialized channel France 5, so the fifth channel of the public broadcaster. They showed it on February 21st at 22:15, again, a late slot. And this is not even a big channel. This is a channel that focuses on cultural and documentary stuff, and it doesn't have a really big audience. But again, they were very careful scheduling this dangerous content in the second part of prime time. In Lithuania, we have a brave, so to say, commercial broadcaster, and this is TV3, who also acquired the 20 Days in Mariupol for Latvia, but in Latvia it was shown very late at night, close to midnight, while in Lithuania they showed it on February 24th at 10 o'clock, which is prime time on Saturday night. Another commercial broadcaster that acquired 20 Days in Mariupol, so this is the second one that we have here, is Romania's ProTV, and they showed it on the 25th of February after midnight. So more or less, this is again marking the anniversary, but again showing it extremely late. But considering the fact that they're a commercial broadcaster, it's an achievement, so to say. And of course, ProTV are offering the documentary for streaming on their streaming platform called Voyo, and for the Lithuania and Latvia, you can also watch it on the streaming platform Go Free, which is owned by the TV3 group. The documentary was shown on the public broadcaster, which has a specialized slot on Monday nights for documentaries, which are usually related to world affairs, so to say. And they showed it on Monday at 10 o'clock on the 26th of February. And moving on to Finland, where the documentary was featured mainly on the streaming platform of the public broadcaster Yle Arena. And it actually is quite popular in Finland. So their decision was to first premiere it on the streaming platform and then show it on TV. And I can tell you that now they are celebrating Easter on Monday, and the main channel of the public broadcaster of Finland will show 20 Days in Mariupol at 10:45 on Monday, Easter Monday. So this is also one thing we can really praise, so to say, choosing Easter to show the reality of the war in Ukraine. Moving on, after the other occasion, which was the winning of the Oscar award, which was another reason for broadcasters, platforms, and so on to show 20 Days in Mariupol. And it was in the UK that the TV premiere happened right after the documentary won the award. And it was Channel 4 that showed it in its prime time. A few days after the live ceremony happened in the US. So they used that occasion in order to promote the documentary and attract a bigger audience to it. And of course, it had already won the BAFTA. So in the UK, the interest for the production was certainly growing even more after the Oscar win. And of course, it's also available to stream there. This month also, 20 Days in Mariupol premiered in the Czech Republic on the second channel of the public broadcaster, CEETV, and that was on March 23rd. And this is again a specialized channel for cultural documentary content, and they aired it at 9:55 in the evening. Something that was a bit surprising to me, bearing in mind, again, the political situation and Hungary's role in this war. Of course, it was not bought by the public broadcaster, which is fully controlled by the government. It was not bought by the commercial channels, which are related to the Orban government, but it was bought by RTL, which is considered to be the more pro-opposition broadcaster in Hungary. It has always been. And this is why there have been attempts to even shut it down, but the European Union is standing behind it. So this is how they managed to be still among the leading broadcasters in Hungary. But they were not brave enough to show it on television, but bought the rights and started streaming it on their streaming platform, RTL Plus. So 2 weeks ago, it also premiered in Hungary. And remember, in Austria, it still has not been shown. Of course, this is also related to negotiating rights, dealing with the distributor and so on. And in some countries, the documentary is only just appearing in cinema theaters. So this is another factor that also has an impact on that. And I can tell you, for example, that in Croatia and Slovenia, which are, let's say, friendly to Ukraine, they have not shown 20 Days in Mariupol on television. But in Serbia, which is considered to be much more pro-Russian, it aired on a very small channel, but it was still shown on television on a channel called Insider TV. And that happened again in March. But really, in most of those countries, including Italy, which I'm not talking about, again, they are taking this political content as too hard-hitting. That's totally my guess. And this is why 20 Days in Mariupol has not been aired in Italy. It has not been aired in Spain. It has not been aired in Portugal yet. In Spain, it is only available on a streaming platform called Filmin. And this streaming platform actually covers Latin America as well. So viewers there can also watch it on that platform. But on television, it has not been shown. And another interesting case for me, because when we consider the Greek community of Mariupol, like as far as I remember, 10 or 15% of people there of Greek origin. In Greece, it is not available for streaming. It has not been shown on television. And again, the only explanation is the political context of the production. They're not willing to risk to anger the Russians, so to say. And basically, that's it for now. These are the countries that have shown or not shown it in Europe. If there are some questions, I can maybe answer. So I guess this is the first one. What are the genres EU puts on air? Again, this is a very interesting question, because, as I said, the documentary genre in itself is a huge universe. Of course, among the most popular productions, because they have this easy to understand, easy to swallow context, it's natural science. Productions about animals, about the beauty of nature, and so on. Those are the ones that work very easily. For example, or you have the travel documentaries, which I can compare to in Ukraine with Dmytro Komarov, this type of productions. They're quite easy to sell, and broadcasters don't have a big problem to schedule them. Other documentaries that work really well, it's about biopic production, so to say. You take a very interesting figure, it could be from nowadays, it could be from the past, and you tell a very nice story about it, which has not been known until now. For example, I can give a good example with the recent Netflix production about Wham, the band Wham. It turned into a huge hit for them because it told the story which nobody knew, and it was told by a streaming platform. And this is where they took a chance, because probably a broadcaster wouldn't commission such a project. But this is why you see more and more streaming platforms commissioning such type of productions, focusing on interesting personalities, on cultural phenomena, etc., which help them to build a new audience. Let's say for a BBC, it wouldn't be interesting, let's say, to do a documentary about some sports star, etc. While for the streaming broadcast, for the streaming platforms, this actually attracts and drives their subscription growth. And especially in not just the European Union, but especially in the US now, this is a big trend, with platforms commissioning documentary productions telling the stories of big sports stars. And among those, you can You can mention HBO Max, Netflix, Paramount.
Можна зазначити.
Actually, there is another reason behind it, because platforms actually discovered that sports will guarantee them returning subscribers. So when they combine the sports and documentary genres, they attract new audiences or just keep them on the platform while they have while they don't have sports to show. There was an interesting example with the ESPN production, The Last Dance, which focused on the last year of Michael Jordan in Chicago Bulls. And what they actually did, they showed it during the period when the NBA was suspended because of the COVID pandemic. Other types of productions, of course, you can call it socially important documentaries, which touch upon interesting topics about things happening in the country itself. Let's say in Germany, why is the poverty rising? Why is the nationalistic movement rising, and so on. So those are, again, topics that are preferred by the broadcasters mostly. And they make special commissions of those. And again, it's always about pressing topics in society. In Ukraine, you can say that you right now have the same situation, but for you, the pressing topic is war. And it's about telling stories around the war of people who maybe are at the front, of people who help the soldiers and so on. So various stories related to the current situation in the country. Another question.
Yeah, another. You see. Oh no.
Yes. Is there another film from UA not about war? Will they put it on air? It's topics that might be interesting that I didn't mention here. It's about social equality, social justice. These are topics that are important in Europe. Let's say about gender equality, about discrimination, and so on. And as far as I know, in Ukraine, Starlight Media has produced documentaries about women, different stories about women, maybe engaged in volunteering and so on. So showing different types of social representatives of ordinary people who do amazing things. These are the types of stories that could attract the interest of the European viewers, and of course of those who buy the content for them. And in Ukraine, I have observed a multitude of interesting productions which show various aspects, not just of the war, but of the Ukrainian society, of Ukrainian culture. And this is something that also could attract the interest. This week, I think, or last week in Vilnius, you had another award winner. Let me just check what the film was about. So that film could travel again because it won an award, and it's called In the Rear View. And again, it's about Ukrainians who were forced to flee the war. It just won the award in Vilnius. And it's co-produced by a Czech guy, I think. So yeah, right now the hot topic is the war, I think, for Ukraine.
The question is, documentary specials or docu-series are more on demand?
Documentary specials, as I said, they could attract extra viewers, so to say. That's why they're more preferred. They're more preferred by the platforms and by the broadcasters likewise, because again, they attract more extra viewers, and they could be related to an event that has just happened and is, let's say, a hot topic in society. For example, you have now the story about Kate and the cancer, and I'm sure we will see a lot of specials about that because this is a hot topic. Docu-series, they require bigger commitment, so there is much more planning in this. And it's harder to sell them. Let's put it this way. It's usually the initiative of the broadcaster. They say, we need this type of docu-series, and they announce a tender for it. They get producers to apply, and they choose the best story that they can get. While with specials, it's usually the initiative of the producers to go to them and say, we can do this for you, and we think it will do great ratings. So it's a bit different. The need is a bit different. And also, of course, the production period is different. So it's quite different in terms of commissioning and delivery period and so on. And regarding docuseries, what you can say is that broadcasters, usually they try to build a brand. Let's say BBC, of course, have the most prominent ones, where you have Sir David Attenborough, who can basically host anything and it becomes a hit. We know all of their shows, Planet Earth, Frozen Planet, and so on. And but they also have different types. Let's say in autumn, they do a documentary series called Autumn Watch, which focuses on what is happening in nature during this season. And then they have the Spring Watch, which focuses on what's happening in spring. In the Nordic countries, you have another example where they do what you can call observational documentary series, where it's basically you install cameras on several locations and you follow for 2 weeks how the elks in Sweden are moving from one part of the country to the other. And this is the documentary series. And again, those are quite popular because again, they attract viewers who might not be watching television, but they like to stream this type of content just to observe the nature.
We don't have more questions, so I think we can turn off our meeting. Thank you for attention. Thank you for your time. And see you.
Дуже дякую. Слава Україні!
Thank you very much. Go to Ukraine.